It was a quiet evening in the small town of Oak Ridge. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the streets. Alex Mitchell, a young man in his late 20s, walked home from his job at a nearby auto repair shop. His boots crunched softly on the gravel road as he headed toward his modest house on the edge of town. It had been a long day of work, but Alex was used to it. He liked the peace of his little town, where nothing ever really happened. As he approached his house, something caught his eye in the woods behind his property. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a flicker in the trees, but then he saw it again. A strange, quick movement. Alex stopped in his tracks, squinting into the darkening forest. His curiosity got the better of him, and he took a few cautious steps toward the trees. At first, he thought it might be an animal, maybe a deer or some other small creature. But then, as he pushed through the underbrush, he found himself staring at something he couldn't explain. A young girl was crouched behind a large rock, her eyes wide with fear. She was unlike anyone Alex had ever seen. Her skin was a pale blue, almost iridescent, and her hair shimmered with streaks of silver and lavender. Her small, elf-like ears twitched nervously as she looked at him, her body trembling. She was wearing a strange, tight-fitting suit that didn't look like anything Alex had seen before, not even in the movies. For a moment, Alex stood frozen, unsure of what to do. His mind raced, but his instincts kicked in. He knew this was no ordinary encounter. The girl looked lost, scared, and alone. Without thinking, he spoke softly. "Hey, are you okay?" Alex asked, his voice gentle. He didn't want to frighten her further. The girl didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared at him, her eyes scanning him as if trying to figure out if he was a threat. Alex took another step closer, keeping his hands visible, trying to show that he meant no harm. The girl's body relaxed slightly, but she still didn't move. "I'm Alex," he said, his voice steady. "I don't mean any harm. You're not from around here, are you?" Her gaze flicked down to the ground, and for a moment, Alex thought she might run. But then she lifted her head and spoke, her voice soft but clear, though accented in a way Alex had never heard before. "No, I am not from here," she said, her words slow and measured. "I am far from home." Alex's heart skipped a beat. The realization hit him hard. The girl was an alien, a real alien, standing right in front of him. He had read about them in science fiction books and seen them in movies, but he never imagined he'd encounter one in his own backyard. Her face was a mix of exhaustion and sadness, and Alex could see that she wasn't just lost. She was terrified. Something had happened to her, something bad. "I'm stranded," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "My ship crashed. I have no place to go." Alex's heart went out to her. Here she was, an alien from another world, stranded on Earth with nowhere to turn. He couldn't imagine how terrifying that must be. The first instinct in Alex was to ask questions, to learn everything about this strange being in front of him. But the more pressing concern was that she needed help, and fast. "Where's your ship?" Alex asked, his voice full of concern. "Maybe we can fix it, or at least help you get somewhere safe." The girl's eyes darkened, and she shook her head slowly. "It is no use," she said, her voice tinged with regret. "My ship is destroyed. There is nothing left." Alex took a deep breath. He wasn't a scientist or an engineer, but he knew enough about vehicles and machines to understand what she meant. A destroyed ship wasn't something he could fix in an evening. In fact, it might take years for anyone to repair it, especially without the right tools or parts. "What are you going to do?" Alex asked, his voice quiet but firm. The girl looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing her options. Finally, she spoke. I do not know," she said. "I have nowhere to go. I am alone." Alex felt a wave of sympathy for her. He couldn't leave her out here in the woods. It wasn't safe, and even if it was, He couldn't imagine leaving her alone. He glanced back toward his house. He wasn't rich, and his house wasn't big, but it was his, and it was warm. It was better than the cold, dark woods. He couldn't just turn her away. "Why don't you come with me?" Alex offered. "You can stay with me for now. We'll figure things out. I don't know what we'll do next, but I'll help you." The girl blinked in surprise. She clearly hadn't expected that. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes darting around as if searching for any sign of danger. But then she nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said softly. I do not know what to say." Alex smiled gently. "No need to say anything. You're safe now." And with that, Alex led the alien girl, whose name was Lyra, back to his house. As they walked together through the woods, Alex couldn't help but wonder what kind of future lay ahead for him. A part of him was excited, curious even, but another part was terrified of what might come next. He had no idea how to help her, or if she could ever return to her home. But for now, he would do what he could. After all, no one else had stepped up to help her. But Alex had. Alex led Lyra through the trees, his footsteps steady, though his mind was racing. He had never expected to find an alien in his backyard, let alone invite one into his home. But here they were, walking side by side, with nothing more than the light from a half-hidden moon to guide them. The woods around them were quiet, but Alex's thoughts were anything but. As they approached his house, he couldn't help but glance over at Lyra. Her presence was like something out of a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. He had never imagined that a moment like this would come, but now that it had, he was determined to help her, whatever it took. Lyra seemed to be more comfortable with each step they took. When they finally reached the small, modest house Alex called home, he opened the door and gestured for her to come inside. She hesitated for a moment, looking around at the unfamiliar surroundings. The walls were plain, with only a few items scattered around, furniture that looked old but well-maintained. It wasn't much, but it was home. Lyra stepped inside slowly, her movements cautious but curious. She looked around, her large eyes taking in every detail. The warmth of the house made her relax a little. She had been alone for too long, and the simple comforts of the place seemed almost magical to her. She wasn't used to such kindness from others, especially not from a human. "Make yourself comfortable," Alex said as he closed the door behind them. "I'll get you something to drink. Water, tea, anything." Lyra shook her head softly. "I do not require food or water as you do," she explained. Her voice was gentle, but there was an undertone of sadness, like she was afraid of being a burden. "But I thank you for your kindness." Alex nodded. He wasn't sure what to say next, so he decided to focus on the immediate problem, helping Lyra. She was stranded on Earth, with no ship and no way to contact her people. He had to think about how he could help her. As he sat down at his kitchen table, Alex started making a plan in his mind. It wasn't going to be easy, but he had to try. He would need to gather supplies, tools, and maybe even ask around town to see if anyone had anything useful. His job at the auto repair shop had given him some skills, but he knew this was beyond anything he had worked on before. Still, he couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Lyra sat across from him, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't speak, but her eyes were fixed on him, watching every move. There was something strange and beautiful about her, something that made Alex want to protect her. She wasn't just a stranger to him. She was someone in need, and Alex couldn't ignore that. "I need to fix your ship," Alex said suddenly, his voice firm. "But to do that, I'll need some tools and materials. I can't do it alone. Maybe there's someone around here who can help." Lyra's eyes widened. "You would do this for me, even though I am from another world?" Alex smiled. "You're not just from another world. You're a person. And right now, you're stranded. I can't just leave you out there with nothing." The alien girl looked down, her long silvery hair cascading over her shoulders. She seemed to be lost in thought for a moment before lifting her head again. I am not accustomed to being helped. Where I come from, we are strong. We do not ask for assistance. But you are kind. You are the first to offer me help. Alex felt a pang in his chest. He could sense the weight of Lyra's past, the burden she carried from her home world. She was part of a race that was advanced and proud, one that likely didn't show vulnerability. Yet here she was, sitting in his small kitchen, unsure of what to do next. Alex couldn't help but feel a deep sense of responsibility for her. "Well, it's not just about fixing your ship," Alex said, sitting across from her. "You need a place to stay too. If you don't mind, I can clear up the guest room for you. You'll have some privacy while we work on your ship. It's not much, but I'll make sure it's comfortable." Lyra seemed to consider his offer for a long time. Finally, she nodded. "I will accept your hospitality. Thank you." Alex stood up and began moving some things around in the guest room, clearing space for her. He was trying to think of everything he could do to help her, but he knew it would take time. And time wasn't something Lyra had in abundance. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that even if they managed to repair her ship, it was possible that her people might come looking for her. And when they did, Alex didn't know what would happen. Would they be kind to her, or would they see her as a failure? He didn't know. But what he did know was that he would protect her, no matter what. Later that evening, after setting up the guest room, Alex returned to the living room. He found Lyra sitting by the window, staring out into the night sky. Her face was solemn, as if she were remembering something far away. "You're homesick," Alex said gently. Lyra nodded, but she didn't speak. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken emotions. "I can't imagine what you're going through," Alex said. "But I promise you, you're not alone anymore. I'll do everything I can to help you." Lyra turned toward him, her eyes bright with something close to gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. "I do not know how to repay you, but I will try." Alex smiled. "There's no need for repayment. Just stay safe. That's all I ask." As Lyra settled into the guest room later that night, Alex sat by the kitchen table, his mind still racing. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew that for now, he had made the right choice. He had given Lyra a place to stay, and that was all that mattered. The days that followed were filled with work and quiet moments of discovery. Alex, despite his lack of advanced tools or knowledge of alien technology, remained determined to help Lyra. Each morning, he would wake up early, gathering scraps, old parts, and anything he could find to begin building something for Lyra. The first few attempts at creating a suitable shelter were clumsy, but with each failure came a new idea. Slowly, a plan started to take shape. Lyra, while still adjusting to her new surroundings, was far from helpless. She may have been stranded, but she wasn't powerless. The alien technology in her mind, though foreign to Alex, had its own kind of logic. She began to teach him the basics of her species' tools, their ways of building, and how things could be repurposed in ways Alex hadn't even thought of. At first, Alex felt overwhelmed by the complexity of it all. But Lyra was patient. She guided him, showing him how to use the materials around them to build something not just functional, but also sturdy. One day, after a particularly long morning of searching for materials, Alex returned home to find Lyra standing in the yard, holding a strange device in her hands. It was unlike anything Alex had ever seen, sleek and metallic, with glowing blue lights that pulsed softly. The device seemed to hum in her hands, and it had an air of mystery about it. "Lyra," Alex called out as he approached. She turned to face him, and for the first time, Alex saw a hint of a smile on her face. "I found this in the wreckage of my ship," she said softly. "I think it could help us." Alex raised an eyebrow. "Help us? What is it?" "It is a matter manipulator," she explained. "It can reshape materials, change their form. It can help us build faster, and make the shelter more solid. Alex's eyes widened in surprise. You can just reshape stuff with it. Lyra nodded. Yes, but it takes practice. I will show you how to use it. They spent the rest of the afternoon working together. Alex struggled at first, but Lyra's calm, clear instructions slowly guided him. With the device, they were able to reshape old metal sheets into sturdy walls, create smooth panels, and even craft some tools from scraps of wood and metal. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. By the end of the week, the small house was starting to take shape. The walls were sturdier. The roof held up under the weight of the rain, and the space felt more like a home than it ever had before. It wasn't a mansion, and it wasn't anything extravagant, but it was theirs. Alex and Lyra had built it together, using a mix of human ingenuity and Lyra's alien technology. As the days passed, Alex realized something. He wasn't just building a shelter anymore. He was creating a home. A home for Lyra, yes, but also for himself. The time they spent together, working side by side, had turned into something more than just a task. They had formed a bond, one built on trust, mutual respect, and shared effort. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about living. One evening after a long day of work, Alex sat on the porch, looking out at the stars. Lyra had gone inside, but he knew she was close, probably inside reading or studying something. He couldn't help but think about how different things had become. His life, once simple and routine, had now taken a completely unexpected turn. The alien girl who had once been so scared, so lost, was now a part of his life in a way he never could have predicted. A soft voice broke his thoughts. "I've been thinking," Lyra said as she stepped outside, joining him on the porch, "about everything you've done for me. You've been more than kind." Alex turned to look at her, the gentle glow of the porch light illuminating her face. "I'm just doing what anyone would do," he replied, though he knew it wasn't true. Not everyone would take in a stranger, especially not an alien. But something about Lyra had touched him. She looked down at her hands for a moment, then up at him. "I've never met anyone like you," she said quietly. "On my world, we are taught to rely on ourselves. We are strong, independent. Asking for help is not something we do. But you've given me more than just a place to stay. You've given me hope. I've never known a human like you." Alex didn't know how to respond. He wasn't some great hero or a man who had all the answers. He was just a regular guy trying to help someone who needed it. Still, there was something in her eyes, something that made him feel like he was doing the right thing. "You don't have to thank me," Alex said. "You're a person, just like me. And right now, you're not alone." Lyra nodded slowly. She seemed to appreciate his words, but Alex could see that she still carried the weight of her past. The sadness in her eyes didn't disappear, but it softened. The alien girl who had once been so distant and wary was now starting to trust him. Over the next few days, they finished the shelter. It wasn't perfect, but it was a safe place for her to stay, a place where she could rest and feel somewhat at home. As they finished, Alex found himself looking at their work with pride. It had taken hard work and creativity, but they had done it together. Lyra's face lit up as she walked through the door of their completed shelter. "It's perfect," she said, her voice filled with quiet awe. "Thank you." Alex smiled, watching her walk inside. "It's just the beginning," he said quietly to himself. He didn't know where this journey would take them, but one thing was clear: they were in this together now. And no matter what came next, Alex knew he would protect Lyra, just as she had come to trust him. The days seemed to slip by quickly, each one blending into the next. Alex and Lyra spent their time working together, fixing parts of the shelter, gathering materials, and learning more about each other. Alex learned that Lyra's species, though technologically advanced, had a deep sense of pride and independence. She spoke little about her home world, only revealing bits and pieces of her life as time passed. One afternoon, after a particularly productive morning of working on the shelter, Alex and Lyra were taking a break outside. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the yard. Lyra sat on the porch steps, staring up at the sky, her eyes distant as though lost in thought. Alex leaned against the wall, watching her quietly. He knew she was homesick, missing her planet, her people, but she had never once asked about returning. It seemed like she had made peace with her situation. For now. Just as Alex was about to sit down next to her, he heard something, faint but unmistakable, a soft humming noise that seemed to be coming from the trees at the edge of the property. At first, he thought it might be the wind or some creature in the woods, but the sound grew louder, more distinct. His heart began to race. Something didn't feel right. Lyra's head snapped up, her sharp alien senses evidently noticing the sound as well. Her face, usually calm, tensed. She stood quickly, her body moving with a grace that Alex couldn't help but admire. "They're here," she said, her voice low and urgent. Alex felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Who's here?" he asked, stepping closer to her. Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw a hint of fear in them. "My people," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I knew they would come for me. I just didn't think it would happen so soon." Before Alex could respond, a shadow appeared in the trees. A group of figures emerged, their movements smooth and coordinated. They were tall, dressed in dark, sleek armor that shimmered in the fading light. At the front of the group was a figure who stood slightly taller than the rest, his posture commanding. He had piercing, cold eyes that locked onto Lyra the moment he saw her. Lyra's body stiffened, but she didn't move. Alex could see the tension in her, the conflict in her mind. These were her people, but they weren't here to welcome her with open arms. They had come for a purpose. The man in the front of the group stepped forward, his eyes never leaving Lyra. "Lyra," he said in a voice that held both authority and anger. "You have betrayed us. You are to return with us immediately. You have no place here." Alex stood protectively in front of Lyra, his heart pounding. He didn't know who these people were or what they wanted, but he wasn't about to let them take her without a fight. "Why are you here?" Alex asked, his voice steady, though his insides were churning. "What do you want with her?" The leader's eyes shifted to Alex, narrowing. "This is none of your concern, human," he spat. "Stay out of it. This does not concern you." Lyra took a deep breath and stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "I am not going back with you," she said. "I have made my choice. I am not your tool to use. I will not be a part of your plans any longer." The leader's expression darkened, his jaw tightening. "You are a disgrace. You were meant for greater things than hiding here with this human." He gestured toward Alex with contempt. "You will come with us, or we will take you by force." Alex's heart raced. He had no idea what these people were capable of, but it was clear they weren't going to back down. He didn't have the skills or the strength to fight them, but he wasn't going to let Lyra be taken away. Not after everything they had been through. "I won't let you take her," Alex said, his voice firm, though he felt a wave of doubt wash over him. He had no idea how he was going to stop these armored figures, but his protective instincts kicked in. He wasn't about to let them take Lyra without a fight. Lyra turned to Alex, her eyes softening, but there was also a quiet determination in them. "Alex, you don't understand. These are my people. I cannot fight them. But I will not go with them. Not after everything I've seen." The leader of the group scoffed, stepping closer. "You're not in a position to make demands, Lyra. Come with us now, or we'll make you." Before anyone could react, there was a sudden sound, a loud crack followed by the hum of a weapon charging up. Alex instinctively moved to shield Lyra, but the leader of the group held up a hand to stop the others. "Hold," he commanded. "We won't kill her yet. She's still valuable to us. But the human." He looked Alex up and down, his eyes cold. "He doesn't belong here. He's a threat. At that moment, Alex realized just how dangerous this situation was. These people weren't just here to take Lyra. They were willing to do anything to accomplish their goal, and they saw him as an obstacle. He wasn't just facing an alien girl who needed his help anymore. He was standing between Lyra and a powerful, unknown force. His entire world had just become a lot more complicated. The tension in the air was thick, and Alex could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Lyra stood quietly by his side, her gaze not on the group in front of them, but on Alex. She was trusting him, despite the odds stacked against them. In that moment, Alex knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let them take her. No matter what it took, he would protect her. The tension in the air was unbearable. Alex stood in front of Lyra, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The group of aliens, their faces hidden behind sleek helmets, stood only a few feet away, their cold eyes fixed on him. The leader's hand still hovered near the weapon at his side, ready to make a move at any moment. Lyra stood quietly beside him, her posture tense but determined. "I won't let you take her," Alex repeated, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. He didn't know what kind of power these aliens had, but he wasn't about to let them force Lyra to return to a place she didn't want to be. The leader of the group stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "You don't understand, human," he said, his voice cold and harsh. "Lyra's actions have consequences. She belongs to us, and we will take her back." Lyra's eyes flickered toward the leader, her expression pained but resolute. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could say anything, Alex spoke again. "I don't care who you are," Alex said, his voice full of quiet defiance. "She's not going anywhere with you." The leader let out a frustrated sigh and waved his hand, signaling the others to lower their weapons. "Very well," he said, turning his gaze toward Lyra. "But don't think this is over. You'll come back with us, one way or another." Lyra stood tall, her voice clear and firm. "I won't return. I won't be a part of what you want. I've seen enough." The leader's expression shifted, the anger in his eyes softening for a moment. "You don't understand, Lyra. You were meant for something greater than this. You were destined for power, to lead, to shape our future." Alex watched the exchange, feeling like an outsider in a conversation that meant so much more than he could grasp. He could see the hurt in Lyra's eyes, the burden she carried from her past. It was clear now that there was more to her story than just being stranded on Earth. Lyra turned to Alex, her voice barely above a whisper. "You deserve to know," she said softly. "I can't keep running from my past." Alex's heart skipped a beat. He had always known there was more to Lyra's story than she was willing to share, but he hadn't expected her to open up now. He nodded, his gaze softening as he looked at her. He didn't fully understand what was going on, but he trusted her. She had proven time and again that she was strong, that she had the courage to stand up for what she believed in. And now he would do the same for her. Lyra took a deep breath, as though gathering the strength to speak the truth. "I was part of a council," she began, her voice steady. "A council that governed my planet. We were supposed to protect our people, lead them to a brighter future. But I uncovered something the council wanted to keep hidden." Alex could feel the weight of her words, even though he didn't fully understand. He could see that this revelation was painful for her. "The council," Lyra continued, "was corrupt. They were using our technology, our resources, to manipulate other planets, other species. They saw everything as a means to an end, and I couldn't be a part of it anymore." Alex listened, his heart heavy with the knowledge that Lyra had been caught in something much darker than he could have imagined. "I tried to expose the truth," Lyra said, her voice cracking. "But when I did, they turned on me. They branded me a traitor, an enemy of the state. I had to run. They wanted to silence me, but I couldn't let that happen. So I left. I left everything behind." Alex's mind raced as he processed her words. Lyra had been a part of something far bigger than he could understand, And her decision to leave her people wasn't just about running away. It was about standing up against a system she couldn't support. It made sense now, why she had always been so distant, so unwilling to speak of her past. "I didn't come here to hide," Lyra said, her voice firm once again. "I came here to find something I lost. Myself. I'd spent too long living in fear, hiding from the truth. But I won't go back. Not to them. Not to that life." Alex reached out, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You don't have to go back, Lyra," he said softly. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. I'll help you, whatever it takes." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes softening. For a brief moment, the coldness in her gaze melted away, replaced by a vulnerability that Alex hadn't seen before. She nodded slowly, her heart lighter for the first time in a long while. "I don't know what's going to happen next," she admitted, "but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I have a choice, and I choose to stay." Alex smiled, feeling the weight of her words settle in his chest. He didn't know what the future held, but he was sure of one thing. He wasn't going to let her face it alone. The leader of the group, watching the exchange, stepped forward again, his voice cold but tinged with frustration. "You can run, Lyra," he said, "but you can't hide forever. The council will find you. And when they do, there will be consequences." Lyra didn't flinch at his words. Instead, she stood tall, her eyes unwavering. "Let them come," she said, her voice steady. "I'm done running. And if they want me, they'll have to come through him first." Alex felt a surge of pride and warmth for Lyra. She had made her decision, and she was willing to stand by it, no matter the cost. The leader's expression darkened, but he didn't make a move. He simply gave one last, long look at Lyra before signaling for his group to turn and leave. They melted back into the shadows, disappearing into the woods as quickly as they had appeared. Lyra took a deep breath, her shoulders relaxing. Alex stood beside her, knowing that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but whatever happened next, they would face it together. After the confrontation with the group of aliens, things settled down for a while. The quiet return to normalcy felt both comforting and unsettling. Alex spent his days working on the shelter, fixing small problems around the house, and continuing to learn more about Lyra's world. Although the threat of her people still loomed over them, they kept moving forward, determined to make the most of the time they had. Lyra, too, had settled into a rhythm. She spent her mornings teaching Alex what she could about her species, its history, technology, and the vast universe from which she came. At first, the information seemed overwhelming, but Alex gradually became fascinated by the complexity of her world. She showed him her people's advanced understanding of energy and matter, explaining how they could manipulate elements and use technology far beyond anything Earth had ever developed. Despite this, Lyra's eyes always seemed distant when she spoke of her past, as though the memories carried a heavy burden. But she was starting to open up more, sharing little pieces of her life before she left her planet. Slowly, Alex began to see the girl who wasn't just an alien, but a person with hopes, dreams, and a deep longing for peace. One day, as the two of them were working outside, Alex asked her a question that had been on his mind for a while. "What made you leave?" he asked. "I mean, you were part of something big. Your people were powerful. Why run away from that?" Lyra paused, looking down at her hands, the fingers of which were wrapped around a piece of metal she had been working on. She seemed to weigh her answer carefully before she spoke. "I left because I didn't agree with what they were doing," she said, her voice soft but firm. "They were using their power for control, to dominate other species and manipulate them. I couldn't be a part of that." Alex nodded, understanding more now than he had before. "I get that," he said. "Sometimes the things we think are meant to help us can turn out to hurt others. I guess you just wanted to do what was right." Lyra gave him a small, grateful smile. "Exactly. I wanted to be free, to choose my own path. That's why I left." They spent the next few hours in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden light over the yard as they worked. The sound of their tools and the soft rustle of the trees filled the air, a peaceful contrast to the tension that had surrounded them just days before. As they worked, Alex couldn't help but admire the way Lyra handled herself. Despite the threats she faced, she remained calm, focused, and determined. She didn't let fear control her actions, and in a strange way that gave him the courage to do the same. He knew that he had a responsibility to protect her, but it was more than that. He had come to care for her. She wasn't just a stranger from another planet anymore. She was someone he trusted, someone he wanted to help. Later that evening, as they sat on the porch of their makeshift home, Alex looked over at Lyra. She had been staring at the sky, her expression unreadable. The stars twinkled brightly above them, and the cool night air felt calming. Alex couldn't help but wonder what it would be like for her to go back to her world. Would she ever be able to go home? Would she want to? "You know," Alex said after a while, "you've got a lot of knowledge. I mean, from your world. You've already taught me so much." Lyra glanced over at him, her eyes meeting his with an intensity he had come to recognize. "I don't know what's next, Alex. I don't know what the future holds. But I know that I want to build something here. Something different. Something peaceful." Alex smiled. He hadn't heard her speak about the future in such a way before. Usually, she spoke of her past, of her flight from her world. But now she was talking about hope. A future. It felt like a small but important shift. "I think that's a great idea," he said. "A peaceful future sounds good to me." For a moment, the two of them just sat there, looking up at the stars. There was something comforting about the stillness, as if the universe was holding its breath along with them. Lyra had given up everything for the chance to build something better, something more in line with her own beliefs. And in doing so, she had come to Earth, not just to escape her past, but to create a future where she could be free. Alex didn't know what the future held for them. They both knew that the aliens would return. It wasn't a question of if, but when. But for now, they were safe. For now, they had time. Time to build, time to learn, and time to figure out what kind of life they could create together. The days turned into weeks, and the work on the house continued. Alex and Lyra had become a team, each helping the other in ways they hadn't expected. Alex used his knowledge of mechanics and construction to repair things and create new tools, while Lyra taught him how to harness energy from the materials they had scavenged. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As time went on, the shelter became more than just a place to hide from the world. It became a home, not just for Lyra, but for both of them. They were building a future, one day at a time. And even though the threat of Lyra's people loomed over them, there was a quiet determination in both of them that no matter what came next, they would face it together. "You know," Alex said one evening, "I never thought my life would turn out like this. Never thought I'd be building a house with an alien. But I think I'm starting to like it." Lyra smiled, the first real smile Alex had seen from her in a long time. "Maybe this was meant to be," she said quietly. "Maybe we were meant to find each other." Alex looked at her, feeling the warmth in his chest. "Maybe," he agreed. "Maybe we were." And so, together, they continued building, not just the shelter, but a future, piece by piece. Days turned into weeks, and the shelter that Alex and Lyra had built together became more than just a place to stay. It became a symbol of their shared strength and determination. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. The walls stood tall and sturdy, the roof was solid, and the space inside felt like a home, even if it was a simple one. Lyra had become more comfortable here, though she still carried the weight of her past. Alex had noticed that she had started to smile more often, even laugh occasionally. The quiet moments they spent together, whether working on the shelter or just sitting on the porch, were some of the most peaceful moments either of them had experienced in a long time. They had found something in each other, a connection, a trust, that neither of them had expected. But despite the peaceful days, Alex knew that the threat of Lyra's people was never far away. She had told him that they would come for her. It was only a matter of time before they would return, and he wasn't sure what would happen when they did. One afternoon, as they worked on the shelter, Alex paused and looked over at Lyra. She was sitting on the ground, carefully adjusting one of the panels on the wall. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the yard, and the sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. "Lyra," Alex said, his voice quieter than usual. "What happens if they come for you again? What will we do?" Lyra looked up at him, her face thoughtful. She had been dreading this conversation, but she knew it was inevitable. "I don't know," she replied softly. "I can't keep running forever, Alex, but I can't go back to them, either." Alex sat down next to her, his hands resting on his knees. "I won't let them take you," he said firmly, though there was a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "I've told you before, and I mean it. You don't have to go back to a place that doesn't want you." Lyra looked at him, a soft smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "You are more than just a human," she said quietly. "You have a strength in you that I didn't expect." Alex felt a warmth spread through him at her words. He had come to care for Lyra deeply, and the thought of losing her, of letting her go back to a world that had betrayed her, was something he couldn't bear. "I don't want to lose you either," Alex admitted, his voice low. "But I don't know what we'll do if they come for you. I'm just a guy with a house. I'm not some warrior or anything." Lyra looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing his words carefully. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady. "You don't need to be a warrior. You just need to be here. With me." Alex felt a pang of emotion in his chest as he looked at her. He knew what she meant. It wasn't about fighting or winning. It was about standing together, facing whatever came next, together. For the next few days, they continued working on the shelter, but their focus shifted. It wasn't just about building a place to live anymore. It was about preparing for the future, whatever that future would look like. Alex and Lyra started to make plans, gathering more supplies, learning more about her technology, and discussing what they would do if her people returned. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Lyra turned to Alex with a serious expression on her face. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice thoughtful. "If they come for me, I won't be able to hide forever. But there's something I can do, something that could help us both." Alex turned to her, curious. "What do you mean?" "I've been studying the device," Lyra said, glancing down at the small matter manipulator she had used to help build the shelter. "It's not just for building things. It can be used to defend against attacks too. If they come for us, I can use it to protect us."